With training camp set to start on the 18th, who could be wearing letters for the Sharks this season?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team, the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be trying to figure out who's wearing letters on the front of their jerseys this season as we going to look at the captaincy, whether the Sharks should name a captain, and why it's probably between Macklin Celebrini and Tyler Toffoli. Going to kind of look at the cases for each of those players. Then we're going to look at some of the other players who could be wearing letters this season, as well as who I think joins the leadership group this year. So let's get started with, of course, the captaincy. It was something we really haven't talked much about on this podcast. We've mentioned it here and there, especially after kind of Couture's announced leave due to his medical injuries and stuff. But, with Couture, kind of officially stepping away, not retiring, officially stepping away from hockey, the Sharks do have a void in that department, right? Couture, who was named the captain the 2019-2020 season after Joe Pavelski left to join the Dallas Stars, and has been the captain since then. But we know, over the past two seasons, Couture only played 6 games, right? Because of the hip injury that he suffered. And, the Sharks have been kind of lacking that captain there. And they've kind of gone about it with the leadership group and having, 4 alternates or captains, and have really kind of tried to put it together. And guys like Mario Ferraro have really kind of held their esteem as one of the captains or one of the alternate captains. And we've seen kind of a lot of guys wear the A for the Sharks over the past couple seasons, but it does kind of feel time with this team turning over to a new core with a lot of new players in the lineup to, really look at giving someone the letter C to be the captain on the team, right? And of course, the two obvious choices are Tyler Toffoli and Macklin Celebrini, right? It's kind of your two guys who you expect to be the potential captains for the Sharks this year. And there's some other guys that you could potentially throw in there, like I think like a guy like Mario Ferraro would be kind of a dark horse candidate with him. But of course, he's entering the last year of his deal, and there's been trade rumors about him for last several seasons. And I assume if you're Mike Greer and Ryan Warsofsky, like you want to pick a guy who's going to be here for a little bit, right? You don't want to throw the letter C on somebody and then 6 months later they're not with the organization anymore. And who like Ferraro could easily sign an extension at some point here, but kind of going back to Foley and to Celebrini, right? Celebrini is 19, and he's expected to be a long, kind of the pillar, the foundational piece of the Sharks rebuild, and is kind of been the next heir apparent in the NHL to Sidney Crosby, who's considered one of the greatest captains of all time. And like Crosby has taken Celebrini under his wing. Like you've seen, they worked out together this offseason. You've seen the way Crosby has talked about Celebrini, to try to make the Olympic team for Canada this year. Like Crosby has done, I think imparted some wisdom onto Celebrini, and a guy like Crosby who came into the league with, ridiculous expectations and delivered in every way, shape, and form, has been, like myself, I was not a Crosby fan as younger player, not as a young, but like when I just, Crosby just wasn't my guy. But as I've gotten older, I've just really appreciated the way Crosby's handled his business and the kind of the leader and the player that Crosby has been, like especially as I got into hockey more, just like Crosby's just been like that type of dude, and that's what you're hoping for Celebrini, right? It's just to kind of be that type of dude. But I think with Toffoli, right, who's quickly kind of become the dad of this team, right, and the way he has taken the young players under his wing, and even Celebrini and Smith, and it sounds like Michael Misa is going to be living with the Toffolis this year. And I think the case for Toffoli is very easy to make, right? Like, he's a guy who has been, he's jumped around a lot of places, but he's a guy who's worn a letter before. He's actually been, a captain for Team Canada in certain, like world championships and stuff like that, where Crosby wasn't able to attend because Crosby was playing playoff games and stuff like that. But like, he's a guy who has been a captain at the highest level and has been a, very well thought of. And everybody who speaks about Toffoli is, very highly, speaks about him and his family and the way they conduct their business. And like, look how quickly Toffoli's had an impact here, right? He got here last summer, and like his impact on the ice, off the ice, and in the community, it makes it very easy for the Sharks to be to look to Toffoli to kind of be that, I would say, bridge captain, because I think we all realize eventually it's going to be Macklin Celebrini who wears the C, and it's just going to be a matter of time, not if, but matter of when Macklin Celebrini does it. And if you wanted to ease Celebrini into the discussion as being the captain, having Toffoli, who we know Toffoli and Celebrini do have a very close relationship with already, seems like the natural choice, right? To kind of start prepping Celebrini to be the next long-term captain of the Sharks, right? And be that 10, 15-year captain that you see, like Sidney Crosby, right? Who's been the captain of the Penguins since, forever now at this point, right? So if Toffoli would make a lot of sense there. And he is signed for the next 3 seasons with a no-move clause. And again, his wife, who's from the Bay Area, and like, they chose to come to San Jose because they wanted to live in the same place for more than 3 months, as a Toffoli who's been traded 1,000 times over the past couple seasons. Would make a lot of sense, right? He has, he's not no move clause, a no trade clause the next 2 seasons. And then the 27-28 season turns into a 15-team approved trade list, which you're hoping by then the Sharks are going to be pushing for a playoff spot, and you wouldn't want to trade Toffoli. So Toffoli makes the most sense. But I think the case for Celebrini, right, is, like I said, it's going to be a matter of time. And, of course, the case against is he's 19, right? And he's a player who's going to be going through the second year of his NHL career. Hoisting those type of responsibilities on him might seem like a lot, but I mean, it's not unprecedented, right? I mean, Connor McDavid was named the captain his second season, and I think things have worked out pretty well for Connor McDavid, who, again, Connor McDavid is a generational talent. And not to say Macklin Celebrini isn't a very good player among himself, but right, it's a little bit different between McDavid and Celebrini, at least especially coming into the league. So I'm torn. Like, I could, like, either way, like, if one of these two guys is going to be named the captain, I think I'm going to be pretty happy with it, because again, Toffoli seems like a very natural choice, where he can spend that time getting Celebrini ready, right? Those two guys are, like I said, already have a close relationship, and then you don't have to kind of rush Celebrini into it. But on the other hand, like, we all know it's going to be Celebrini at some point, right? Like, why not just get it over with? And then you don't have to deal with that awkward transition where, if Celebrini's ready to be the captain in a season, and then like Toffoli's like, take the thing off and hand it over to, you're not getting a Tavares type of thing, right? Where Tavares hands the captaincy over to this last season to Austin Matthews. You don't have to kind of go through that awkward. Not that I think it'd be awkward, but you don't have to kind of go through that. And maybe it's just more of a natural, like, Toffoli's the captain for the next 3 seasons, and then when his contract runs out, Celebrini becomes the captain, and that's just kind of the path right there of like this is going to be how it's going to be is, Toffoli's going to be our captain for the next 3. And then once this contract is over, whether he stays with the Sharks or not, that'll be the handing off point. And then Celebrini is going to be the captain because by then he'll be, 22 or whatever. He'll have clearly established himself as a, NHL superstar. Like we'll know, Celebrini is going to be one of the best players in the league by then, if everything goes to plan, and that could be it. That could be the way to go. So, but yeah, hopefully we get kind of close the chapter on that old, the old Sharks core, and start looking ahead. Not to say we didn't have great times with Couture and all these guys, but that's part of moving on. And we have, I think, moving ahead with this new group of people and kind of naming a new captain, I think would be a really good start for this, what should be a really fun season for the Sharks. So we're going to look at other players who I think could be more than deserving to wear a letter on this jersey. So we'll talk about Mario Ferraro, William Eklund, some of the other guys who I think should be in contention to wearing a letter this season. So we'll get to that in just 1 second. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Great thing about FanDuel is it fits however you like to play. Player props, so if maybe you think Josh Allen's going to go off against the Dolphins this weekend or on Thursday, which he probably will, or if you want to build a same-game parlay, or even jumping in to live action if you think a game might turn at the end. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, guys, I do, of course, want to thank you for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't now, perfect time to subscribe wherever you're listening to this, or if you're watching on YouTube as well, as we have preseason hockey on Sunday night, a preseason game with NHL players. The season, guys, it's here. Hockey season's here. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right. Who should wear the A or A's for the Sharks? And the Sharks have kind of gone about the past couple of years of having two sets of alternate captains, right? For home and for the road. So two guys are the alternate captains at home, and then two guys are alternate captains on the road, but still all part of this leadership group, right? And I think the easy one, of course, is Mario Ferraro. Ferraro is, say what you will about Mario Ferraro and his game, et cetera, but he is beloved in that locker room. He's I think a perfect player to have as an alternate captain, right? Guy, the way he goes about his business. Also, side note, congratulations to the Ferraros on the birth of their child. I'm glad to, super happy for them. I'm glad to see being a parent. It's a lot of fun. It's exhausting, but it's a lot of fun. But anyway, so Ferraro, though, I think he should continue to wear, and as long as until he's not on this team, he should continue to wear an A. I think what he means to the Sharks, just again, as that kind of grinder mentality, that try hard type of player. He's, like I said, he's beloved in the locker room. Ferraro should, no question, Ferraro should continue to wear an A for this team, unless he's getting traded right now. But don't see that happening at the moment here. So easy one, slam dunk right there. I think some of the other guys, especially we'll start with the forward group here of players who I think are legitimate guys to wear a letter this season. So assuming Toffoli is going to be wearing a letter, whether it's a C or an A, he's going to be wearing a letter. So I'm not going to include him in this conversation. I think you have Alex Wenberg, who I know wore it at times last season as well. He, kind of that just professional. You know exactly what you're getting from Wenberg. He's going to be a very kind of cool, calm, collected type of player. The big question with him, of course, is he's going to be probably trade bait at this deadline. So, and that's not to say like having him as an alternate captain for half the season isn't like there's still benefit to that, but I think he is, if you're looking to maybe look at a leadership group that is a little bit more year to year and a little bit more permanent, I think we maybe want to look elsewhere. Another guy, of course, would be Barclay Goodrow, who, of course, the Sharks brought in for that kind of professionalism, leadership, all that stuff, the way he is in the dressing room, all like Goodrow, is and he wore a letter, of course, with the Rangers, has worn a letter for the Sharks as well. Guy who easily could wear a letter. I do think on ice has to kind of, your on ice play has to kind of mean something a little bit as well. Barclay Goodrow, he does things on the ice, some of them good, some of them not so good. But I think if you want to make a statement and kind of start ushering in that new era of San Jose Sharks hockey, I think William Eklund should be a guy who you should strongly consider to wear an A, right? As you're looking at some of these younger players who kind of start to step up and take more of a leadership role. And again, if you're looking to build a leadership group that I think can and that should be more long-term and thinking, not just getting turned over every year, right? Where it's not just Mario Ferraro wears an A and then it's just a bunch of rotating, cast members around Ferraro. Eklund, who's got 1 year left on his ELC and then has a 3-year extension with the Sharks and was the first round pick of the Sharks. And we hear about how, his kind of growing, mentorship and being, kind of now, he is the longest tenured Sharks forward and the second longest tenured Shark behind Mario Ferraro. I really do think Eklund should be a candidate to wear a letter this year. And it's like I said, if the whole thing is to try to close the chapter on the old Sharks group and start to kind of look towards this new Sharks group, having Eklund wear a letter, I think would go a long way in that, right? Especially if you're kind of still looking ahead long term, where you expect Celebrini to wear a C. And I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Misa, I think, will wear a letter at some point. And a guy like Sam Dickinson, I think, will wear a letter at some point. Having a guy like Eklund kind of be that first among these young guys, and kind of graduating from a young player to now kind of a mature NHL, full-time player. I think that's a move Greer and Ryan Warsofsky really have to think about. So I think he is a player who definitely should think about it. Defensively, some of the guys I'm looking at, I think you have to look at Dmitry Orlov as a potential letter wearer for the Sharks, right? I know the defense is going to be weird because you have so many guys who are just on 1-year contracts here, but Orlov is signed for the next 2 seasons, right? With the Sharks, and Mike Greer went out of his way to sign him and give him, a hefty amount of money with a no trade clause, and this year, and then that kind of opens up next season. But Orlov defensively, I think, is a guy who could be here for the next couple seasons. If you're not quite sure about handing the A to one of the young players and you want someone who's going to be around for a little bit, I think Orlov is a perfectly good candidate. And especially with so many kind of Russian players entering the fray here, right? You look at Askarov, you have Shakir Mukhamadulla, and you have Igor Chernyshov. Having a guy, who's speaks a little Russian, who's also a veteran and a captain, might not be the worst thing around. So I think that could be a very clear path right there for the Sharks to, give Orlov a letter and, kind of take a lot of these Russian guys kind of under his wing, kind of as these guys kind of trying to figure it out and learn the ropes here. So, but He did just show up here, so we'll see. But I'm going to put together my leadership group and who I think should be on the Sharks leadership group and who I think should be the captain for the San Jose Sharks this season. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. You just realized your business need to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you find the right candidates faster. If you've ever been in the spot where you need to hire like yesterday, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, guys, before we finish up, of course, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no offseason, bringing you daily league-wide stories that matter the most, getting you guys geared up for a new season. With local coverage you love from Locked On, find Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so who do I think will wear letters this season? As much as I want to give Celebrini the C, I think Toffoli gets it first. Again, like I'm very much in the camp of Celebrini's going to wear it at some point. Why not just get it over with? And Celebrini's like, he's not a normal 19-year-old guy, right? Like he's a guy who has spent his entire life around professional athletes, and not just like any professional athletes, like Steph Curry, Draymond, like Steph Curry, who's like considered one of the best captains in basketball, right? Like he spent his time around him. He spent time around like Sidney Crosby, like a lot of time around Sidney Crosby. Like I think Celebrini, like he's just wired differently. Like he's not a normal 19-year-old kid. Like no offense, like that's not a shot. Like that's a compliment. Like he's so above his years maturity wise. And yes, you still get to see the greats like him and Will Smith being teenagers and doing dumb teenager things sometimes, but just the way he goes about his business, right? And what he kind of, I don't want to say demands, but like you can hear like the respect that he's already gaining in the NHL community, right? Like getting to work, like getting to go train with Nathan MacKinnon, who's like a certified maniac when it comes to his training, right? Working with Sidney Crosby, who's considered, the greatest captain of this era. Having Toffoli come, and running whatever the like mountain thing over in North Vancouver that they all run. And even like Celebrini draft night, like calling and introducing himself to these new these new draftees, and like going out of his way to do that. Again, he's like 19 years old. Like I would I'm fine with Celebrini wearing this seat, and that's what I would do. But I think Toffoli gets it right now. Like I said, I think it's probably a 2 to 3 year plan with Toffoli to like kind of get Celebrini ready to go to be the captain, and like going through some of those ups and downs. And the Sharks just haven't had a lot of ups, and like hopefully with the Sharks starting to turn the corner here in this rebuild and maybe starting to win some games, like having Celebrini kind of learn how to manage like when things are going really well here, because it's it's hard to manage. It's hard to go when things are going really bad. It's also, it can be hard when things are going like really, really well at times, because people tend to, well, if things are working now, I don't need to put in that extra time or that extra, like kind of keeping people accountable, even though things are going well. So I do think, I think that's probably where the direction of the Sharks go. But if Celebrini wears the C, I'll be extremely happy. If Toffoli wears the C, again, I'll be extremely happy either way. So, but as for the other candidates of players who are going to project it, to wear the A, and I think still going with such a young team, I still think going the like the even if you have a captain, still going the 4 alternate candidates, because again, this team is so young. We might have potentially 4 players who are 20 and under on this team, and Michael Misa, Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, and Sam Dickinson. Like that's 4 players who are potentially that like 20 and under. And then you have plenty of guys who are, 22 or 23 and under on this team. So I think having a fair amount of alternate captains on here isn't the worst thing in the world. That way there's always somebody there for you. So, of course, again, I'm going to keep Mario Ferraro as an alternate captain, because I do believe that is like having Ferraro there as an alternate captain. So assuming we'll go Toffoli C, Ferraro A. I'm going to go Barclay Goodrow A. Continue to let him, because again, like his work ethic and like having that undrafted guy who's worked his way through the league, and kind of like, I think he does provide that type of value and he's well liked in the locker room as well. So I'll go with those 2 guys right now. And then, like I said, I think Eklund. It would be big for the Sharks as you try to usher in this new era. A young guy like Eklund to kind of be that first guy, that first kind of quote unquote graduate of this new group of people. Having Eklund, who's has gone through plenty of ups and downs with this organization so far, and has been there for a lot of bad seasons, and you're going to start to hopefully turn things around. I think Eklund wearing an A would go a long, long way for this organization, and what's going to be, again, we keep hearing the future is teal. Having one of these young players who's going to be part of your core wearing a letter, I think will go a long way with that. And then I would strongly consider Dmitry Orlov, who, like I said earlier, I think for a team that does have a fair amount of Russian players, on the roster and, in the pipeline, are going to be making impacts here sooner rather than later. I think having a guy like Orlov, who has, been around, he's won a Stanley Cup. He's played in a lot of big time playoff games, and he's played in a lot of big time hockey. And he's going to be kind of, expected to be the guy for the, on the blue line for the Sharks this year. I think that would be another touch point for some of these young guys, guys like Muka Madulin, who's going to be kind of navigating his first full season in the NHL. A guy like Askarov, who's also going to be navigating his first full season in the NHL. And then, a guy like Igor Chernyshov, who could be playing NHL games, as soon as this season here. I think having a guy who from the motherland there, not a bad idea. And again, it's not like Orlov has not, he's been around the NHL. He's been there, done that type of thing. So that's who I think. So I got Toffoli as captain, Eklund, Goodrow, Ferraro, Orlov. Those are my guesses on who wears letters for the Sharks. We will find out probably here sooner rather than later. And maybe not the captain. They'll do a whole thing for that, but we'll know who's wearing letters probably here pretty soon. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow as we're going to start getting geared up for Sharks training camp. Hopefully we should be getting a roster here soon. So that's the plan. If the Sharks roster comes out, we'll go through the roster and kind of get to know some of the new guys, PTOs, anything like that, anything off the wall. We'll kind of dig into that. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok, Cowabunga Hans Molman. And of course, follow me on Twitter and Facebook at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.